Hello, I'm Graham Fitch and I'm coming to you as always from Steinway Hall in London for Pianist Magazine, and in this particular episode I'm going to be talking about basically how to practice certain pieces that we've got in the magazine. And if you'd like to know which issue I'm talking about, just have a look in the description box below and all will be revealed. But what I've decided to do is to take 3 pieces that we publish in the scores section of the magazine and just look at a few ideas for how we might solve problems or how we might learn the notes in the first place. And I'm going to be focusing mostly on how we're going to learn the notes in the first place, because here you are with the scores and you'll want to be learning them. So the first piece I've chosen is the barn owl. The little owl continues screeching, or sometimes the barn owl has not yet flown from Janacek's On an Overgrown Path. And it starts off with a flourish that actually, if you divide it up between the 2 hands, it feels much more comfortable than doing as it looks. That gives you quite a few awkward stretches. So what I do is I take the first 2 notes with the left hand, then the G sharps with my right hand, the E with my left hand, and then I'm all in place for the tremolo. I've lost count how many I'm doing, but let me start from here. And that works for that whole page. The next section, we've got a chordal section that has to be beautifully voiced. Now voicing, what does voicing mean? Well, really, the balance that I choose to give the chords. If I played all the notes of the chord equally, we'd tend to hear, first of all, we wouldn't hear the tune on the top. But because of the natural resonance of the piano, we tend to hear the bass or the lower notes more. So what we have to do in our practice is we have to, it's a little bit like cooking or a little bit like alchemy. We decide, a little bit of this, a pinch of the tenor, maybe a little bit more alto. So what I would do first is to go through the top and just play it by itself. And then perhaps take the alto that goes with it. Now I have to take the first note with my left hand because it's in the left hand. You see what I'm doing there? I'm trying to find a good balance between the top. So my thumb casts a shadow. Now the other notes are much less important, so I'd want to hide the B that's in my second finger. That would need to be very much softer. Can you hear how strong my top is in relation to my middle notes? Now for practice, I recommend, I call it miming, some people call it shadow practice. All I'm doing here is touching the lower notes but without sounding the keys, and this is quite challenging. You're only hearing my top notes, but I'm actually touching all of the notes. And then it's a gradual process. Then maybe I can add a tiny bit from underneath. That's too much top, because I notice that I've also got a little shadow here in the tenor. I'd want to be aware of that voice. The tenor voice needs to, again, be considered in terms of balance. I'm going to move on to the Mazurka in C minor by Glinka, which is a beautiful little piece. We tend to think of mazurkas and Chopin, but here is Mazurka and Glinka. So what we've got here is a left hand that hops around and a melodic line on the top, which is actually what controls everything, this line on the top. Very flexible. Put your metronomes away. We do not need a metronome with this piece. If you practice this kind of music with a metronome, even with the best will in the world, you'll end up sounding straight-jacketed and rigid. So we want to be really free with this music. However, we need to also really know what our left hand is doing. So what I'm going to show you is a few ideas for practice. The first idea I'm going to show you is a slow tempo. I call this quick cover. Slow tempo, but with fast movements. So you'll notice that when I release my pinky here, I move fast to the chord above, and then fast back to the... And I'm sitting on the keys before I play. Find, cover. That's the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do would be to break up the chords and go from my bass note to the lowest note of the chord. Now sometimes we have 3 notes, and notice I'm doing this without pedal, and sometimes we have just 2 notes. I'm going to just show you the first little bit there. So what I did, again, let me show you. Pinky, and then whichever finger is playing the lower or lowest note. Now let me do that again, but this time I'm going to go to the top note, which is my thumb note. Now in the case of the next few bars where we've got a middle note, I could go to my middle and then touch in my outer notes. Touch in my outer notes later. I could do that the other way around. I could go to my pinky and then touch in the other notes. And obviously I can do that from the top as well. Just one last thing with this for the left hand. You notice I'm spending a lot of time on the left hand because I think it's very important when we're playing music where the left hand moves around like this, that we're really familiar with the left hand by itself. So lots of left hand by itself practice without the pedal and then obviously with the pedal. That's a good rhythm to use. You'll notice what I'm doing there. I'm springing off my bass and landing on my chord, and then springing off my chord and landing in my new bass. All of that enables the left hand to know automatically where it's going, so that when I add my right hand, I don't have to think. I can use my thinking part of my brain for, well actually my feeling part of my brain for what it is that I want to do expressively with the music. But my left hand needs to be fairly automated first. So that's the Glinka Mazurka in C minor. Now I'm going to move on to the Beethoven Bagatelle in A, which is Opus 33, number 4. Very, very lovely piece. Now, if we look at it on first glance, it looks like a string quartet. In fact, it is a string quartet in style. We've got a first violin. Whoops. Which seems to be focused very much on that E. Now, if I were to put that together with my cello, see how static it is? We've just got an E, really an E focus and an A focus down there, and then they agree at 2 points in bar 2, at that point, and at the end they agree. Now what are the second violin and the viola doing? Well, let's have a look. Quite a lot of pairing there, isn't it? We get the feeling that those two voices are working together. Do you notice what I'm doing? I'm stripping this music down to its components. Let me play that now with the bass, with the cello. Who needs the tune? It's almost beautiful enough without the top. And I'm sure this is how string quartets rehearse. The first violin will sit quietly for a moment while the others get their sound right and the balance right. Then when I put everything together, hopefully I've got something homogenized. So it's not just about the tune and then something soft underneath. It's a question of the melodic lines working together. So if I do that, now what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to give you another suggestion for practice, which is to do it without the pedal to start with. Let me show you. It's going to sound a little bit bald. what I'm aiming to do is to get as good a sound as I can. As good a sound as I can without the pedal, so that when I do add my pedal, I'm only putting 5 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't need more than that. I wish I had more time to show you more. I'm just going to show you a little bit for the second section from bar 16, which is this. See how that works? We've got a bass line and then semiquavers, 16th notes on the top. For practice, just play it as a chorale, as a progression of harmony, feeling how the melody and the bass work together. Subito piano, so that when you open it up, you'll have heard how the harmony works all together. There's plenty more to say about this piece, but I think I've run out of time, so I'm going to have to stop now and just invite you to enjoy these lovely pieces that we've got in the scores section. I'll see you again very soon.